Hello and welcome to Ask Amanda Now. I am your host. I am Strata lawyer Amanda Farmer, and this is our short Friday afternoon session where I can answer one Strata question for you. I'll be here for about 15 minutes, maybe 20 today. I used to say 10 for our Ask Amanda Now sessions. I don't think I've ever done these in 10 minutes, unless I'm in the back of a bus. That did happen a few weeks ago. Our last Ask Amanda Now session was me broadcasting from the back of a New South Wales state transit vehicle. I think we might have run for about 10 minutes there. Still was able to answer one Strata question, which is exactly what I plan to do for you here today. If you join me regularly on a Friday afternoon, you'll notice that sometimes we have our longer Friday live sessions. Sometimes it is a shorter Ask Amanda Now. That's what we're doing today. I certainly have one question here ready to go for you. And a few of you already here live waiting for the answer. If you're coming on in live, feel free to give me a hello here in the comments. I got my eyes on those. We are going out to LinkedIn as well as Facebook, also out to YouTube. If you are not with us live, but you're catching the replay, drop me a hello. Wonderful to know that you're there and have enjoyed your week in Strata. I've certainly enjoyed mine. I've had a jam-packed week, a little bit of travel this week. You may have seen the video on the page. I was in Melbourne doing a little bit of media on Wednesday morning. That was following some client work that I was doing in Melbourne on Tuesday. Haven't yet released the full interview that was recorded in Melbourne, but as soon as that's out, I will let you know where to find that so you can check it on out. Come on in and say hi. Gail is here saying, hi, Amanda. Happy Friday. How you doing, Gail? Cheryl is saying hello. Arti is here. Hello, long-time watcher, first-time commenting. You are more than welcome, Arti. And look, I'm going to give you a little hint. Today's your lucky day. Very, very good idea to be commenting today, Arti. Stay tuned. And Shana is here from Coffs Harbour. Great to see you, Shana. You are all here in the right place for my answer to one Strata question. So I put this call out every few weeks or so. The call goes out on the Facebook page, it goes out on LinkedIn. I also occasionally send an email inviting Strata questions. We got lots today, filling up our spreadsheet here, but I have chosen one. And when I choose these questions, I'm looking at questions that can be answered in about 10 minutes or so, questions, the answer to which I think are going to help many people. It's not a very specific, very detailed question that may only relate to one building or one very unique situation. And the person who I felt asked the kind of question, the answer to which will help many, was indeed Arti. Arti's question is going to come up here on the screen for us. And I'm so pleased that, Arti, you've been able to join us live here today. Bring on up Arti's question, Mina and Rochelle, who are helping me out in the background here. I would love for everyone to see it on the screen. Arti has asked, when do I need to replenish the Capital Works Fund, and when can I use funds from the Capital Works Fund? Really great question that is going to give us the opportunity here, Arti, to talk about what kinds of expenses need to be met from a Capital Works Fund, how we plan for those expenses, and how we make sure that we can meet those expenses as they come up. So really good question that impacts all buildings. It even impacts our smaller buildings. Our 2-lot strata plans certainly need to be having Capital Works funds and raising money to Capital Works funds. There is an exemption for 2-lot strata plans, but it's a very specific exemption. I've talked about that in the past here on live. If you are in a 2-lot plan, drop me a note and I can direct you to those further resources about 2-lot plans. Arti, because you are here live, if you do want to post any more details here in the comments about the size of your building, are you on the committee? Is there a particular reason why you're asking this question and are concerned about this now? You should feel absolutely free to post that further info or not. We have plenty to talk about here with the question that you have raised. So I can see Arti saying, yay, my question has been chosen. That's awesome. Patrina is tuning on in saying, I need a nana nap, but I've stayed awake for this. Good on you, Patrina. Very, very, very good decision here today. All right, so what I have prepped for you is some sections of our New South Wales legislation. I've crossed my fingers here, Arti, and I have hoped, assumed that you are in New South Wales. You've used the term Capital Works Fund, which is the term that we use in New South Wales, previously sinking fund and perhaps known elsewhere as sinking funds. I have the relevant sections of our legislation to show you, and Rochelle and Mina will pop the links in the comments as I go through, so you can go and check those out as well. So first of all, I'm going to hit this button here and share with you my screen where I have ready to go Section 79 of our Strata Schemes Management Act. And this is the section that explains what a capital works fund is for, what kinds of expenses we can pay from a capital works fund. I'm going to scroll immediately past Section 79.1, which is all about the administrative fund. We're not talking about the administrative fund today. We are talking about the Capital Works Fund. And you can see on the screen here, Section 79, subsection 2, which tells us that an owners corporation must, at each annual general meeting, estimate how much money it will need to credit to its Capital Works Fund for actual and expected expenditure. So what this is telling us is that we have to have a budget. We have to have a budget for the forthcoming year, and that budget estimates how much money we think we need to put into our Capital Works Fund. To work out how much money we need to put into our Capital Works Fund, we have to think about what we're going to spend money on. What expenses do we need to pay from the Capital Works Fund? This is the section that tells us what we spend money on from the Capital Works Fund. It is for painting or repainting any part of the common property. It is to acquire personal property. So those are things, items that belong to the owner's corporation. There might be equipment that is used to clean around the property, equipment that the building manager might be using. It's personal property. It's not real estate. It's not real property. To renew or replace personal property, to renew or replace fixtures and fittings that are part of the common property, to replace or repair the common property, and to meet other expenses of a capital nature. And there's a note helpfully here in the section that tells us that expenses of a capital nature would include expenses in relation to major repairs or improvements to the common property or personal property of the owner's corporation, such as replacement of roofing, guttering, fences, and the like. Now, this is essentially your rainy day fund. We're planning for future major work. We might have to replace the lift in 5 years' time. So we're putting aside money in the Capital Works Fund to spend on replacement of the lift, replacing roofing or a waterproof membrane, items of common property that need repair and replacement. This is the section that tells us that those expenses come from our Capital Works Fund. When estimating the amount that we need to be crediting to the Capital Works Fund, this applies also to the Administrative Fund. Today we're talking about Capital Works Funds. The Owners Corporation must have before it and must take into account a statement of the existing financial situation of the strata scheme and an estimate of receipts and payments. Now, this is why when you sit down at your annual general meeting, you're looking at the financial statements for the previous year, you're looking at the proposed budget for the forthcoming year, and you're looking at any income and expenses that might have come in between. So you have an up-to-date statement of the financial situation of the owners corporation. Really important so that your owners can make an informed decision about the raising of money for the coming year. If you're in a brand new building, you might have an initial maintenance schedule that has been provided by the developer. That has to be taken into account when you're considering money to be raised. And importantly, for the Capital Works Fund, you are to take into account the 10-year Capital Works Fund plan. I'm going to come back to that and give you the section of the legislation where that's set out. But Arti, this is really important when you're thinking about what needs to be raised to the Capital Works Fund, and when you're using funds from the Capital Works Fund, your 10-year plan for your building. I would love to know if you have one. Let me know. Your 10-year plan for your building is there to guide you. That is specifically a 10-year plan for capital works. Okay, that is set out in Section 79 of our Strata Schemes Management Act. We have a link to Section 79 as it appears here on the Austlii website available to you. So Mina and Rochelle are posting those here in the chat, which is excellent. So that's step one, Arti, to understand what it is that we use our Capital Works Fund for. Step two, we need to be assisted by our 10-year plan. That's over in Section 80 of our Strata Schemes Management Act. That is showing on your screen now. This is the section that says an owner's corporation is to prepare a plan, not can if it wants, prepare a plan. It is to prepare a plan of anticipated major expenditure to be met from the Capital Works Fund for a 10-year period commencing at the first annual general meeting of the Owners Corporation. The Owners Corporation resolves to review, revise, or replace its 10-year plan at each general meeting and must review the plan at least once in every 5 years. And you'll see there in Section 80 what kinds of things are supposed to be included in the plan. So this is going to assist you to estimate how much you need to raise to your Capital Works Fund at each annual general meeting. And if you've ever seen one of these plans, it will actually break down year by year the balance that should be sitting in your Capital Works Fund at the end of each year, because it takes into account that the lift might need to be replaced in 6 years' time. It might need to be replaced in 2 years' time. The windows might need to be done in 5 years' time. And instead of surprising owners with a very large expense and perhaps a special levy for having to pay for that work, the idea is that money is raised over time to contribute to that expense. And when the expense falls due, there is money sitting there waiting to be spent, and there's no surprises. Okay, I can see quite a few comments coming on in here. I'm just going to head over to those now. Scrolling back on up. Arti's saying, yes, Arti's on the committee on 2 buildings, each with 8 units. Excellent. Hello's here from Anna. Hey, Anna. Arti's saying there's lots of abnormal costs and we are negative in admin, so we're using from Capital Works until we can do a special levy. Oh, very interesting. Yes, so that is permitted under our legislation, that borrowing funds from the administrative fund to pay Capital Works expenses, yes, but there's also a legal requirement to replenish, to use your word, Arti, to replenish your Capital Works Fund. I don't know if I have that section up for you, but it does say within 3 months of taking from the admin fund, you need to be resolving to reimburse that fund. That is specific. I'll come back, I'll find the exact section that says that if it's not one of these, and make sure we post that here for you, Arti, if that's your specific concern at the moment. It is very often overlooked, and it is something that I don't see. Strata managers here let me know, but it's something that I don't see done at all. I was going to say very often, but at all. Generally, the deficit is made up at the next annual general meeting when the budget's set for the coming year. A little bit extra is raised to be able to meet the deficit. That's in a healthy building that's able to do that. So Arti's saying there is a plan, but insufficient funds at present. Yes. So depending on how old your plan is, maybe it hasn't been followed in the past there, Anna. Arti. Okay, Anna's saying on that, just don't take what the strata manager proposes. This year it was suggested to reduce our levies. Our building's over 20 years old, and I said, no, increase the levies. Good on you, Anna. If you've been following the page for a while, you know that that's often what we preach here through our expert guests, as well as through my own experience in my building and my experience with clients. I think it is just so important to be in a healthy financial position, and nobody, I shouldn't say nobody, it would be a rare building that's in a position to lower levies at a general meeting. Helena's asking, is it necessary to have a 10-year plan? Visually, we can see what will need to be done, and we'll make sure that we have enough funds to cover us. Well, if you are in New South Wales, Helena, our New South Wales legislation, which you can see on the screen here now, Section 80, says that an owner's corporation is to prepare. It's rather frustrating that the drafters of our legislation don't use the word must. The owner's corporation must prepare. Is to prepare. What does that really mean? Well, I think it means must prepare a plan of anticipated major expenditure, and is to prepare one for each 10-year period, and then to be revising that at least once in every 5 years. So that's quite clear from Section 80. So the plan must be there. But here's the kicker. Subsection 7 in Section 80, it's right at the bottom of the screen here. An owner's corporation is, so far as practicable, to implement each plan. So we must prepare the plan, but we only have to implement it if it's practicable. What the heck does that mean? If we feel like it, if owners can afford it, if we don't have some major litigation going on that everybody's contributing to and is distracted by and funds have been diverted to. What there isn't, Helena, in our legislation is a mandatory requirement to apply the plan and to stick to the plan and to raise levies in accordance with the plan. So you've got to get one, but it's there as a guide. That has frustrated many owners, strata managers too, and it's a little bit unclear why our legislation, when it commenced in this form in 2016, didn't simply have a mandatory requirement to follow a plan. There have been many who have since called for it. Anna's saying, I will certainly be asking about that. I did not know about the 10-year plan being in the Act. Excellent. So I'm so glad I could fill you in on that. Kristen's here saying hi. Jan's saying, I didn't know that either. We're facing a huge levy to replace windows. Yeah. Fascinating that you haven't been aware that a 10-year plan was a mandatory requirement in our legislation. Arti's saying, I don't think most strata managers know this regarding replenishment. Yeah, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to try and find it for you here, Arti. And what we can do in the meantime is, as I'm doing this, you can see how I look up legislation. Let's do it. Live workshop. New South Wales legislation, acts. Strata Schemes Management Act is one of the most accessed acts on OSLI. That's what that means, because it's sitting there. If it wasn't there, we'd just go to S and we would find it, but I'm going to shortcut that. Now, I know that the requirement is something about 3 months. So I'm going to put in the search here, 3 months, and see what pops up. Here it is. It's in Section 76. The use of the administrative fund or capital works fund for purposes of other fund. This, I think, is what's happening in your building, Arti. This section applies if the owner's corporation for a strata scheme having more than 2 lots transfers money from the administrative fund to the capital works fund, or uses the admin fund to meet expenditure that should have been met from the capital works fund. Arti, I think that's your situation. Or the other way around, then the owner's corporation must, not later than 3 months after the transfer or use, determine the amount to be levied as a contribution to the fund from which the transfer or use was made, to reimburse the amounts paid from the fund. Section 81(3) and 5 apply to a contribution determined under this section. What does that section say? Do I have it here? I do. Oh, you have to levy. The way to replenish the fund is to levy on each person liable a contribution. That makes sense. That's the way that we raise money in strata schemes. So it is Section 76. Arti, if you weren't aware of that, and if your strata manager is not aware of that, this is, and look at that, it says must. There's a must. The owner's corporation must, not later than 3 months, replenish the fund. I'm going to just going to scroll down to see if I yet have any strata managers tuning in to let me know. if this is a practice that they take on, I know Rena Van Alst, Strata manager, and I have spoken about this on the podcast in the past, and Rena has noted that it is rare to see Strata managers who are complying with this, indeed self-managed buildings. I think if you're not aware that you need a capital works fund plan, this is quite an esoteric, not well-known section itself, the replenishment after 3 months. So if you weren't managed by a professional manager, it's very unlikely that you would know about this requirement. So having snuck up on Mina and Rochelle, that section 76, if I can ask them in time to post that one here in the comments so that Arti can manage, have a closer look at this one and anyone else interested in this section. Thank you, Mina and Rochelle, on top of it. Artie's saying, thanks, Amanda. So confirms I'm telling the Strata manager the right thing to do in New South Wales. Learnt it all from here. Learn it all here. This is the place to blame. Amanda Farmer told me so. Come back and watch her video. Happy to. Happy to be the source of all information or misinformation in this Strata sector, Artie. Okay, that's not all I wanted to say, I don't think. I have, look, it's already 20 minutes. We should start calling Ask Amanda now, a 1-hour session as well. You're going to be assisted by your Capital Works Fund plan, if you've got one, in estimating the amounts you need to raise. The other thing I wanted to say was indeed relevant to Section 81. We've done our estimates. We've been assisted by our plan. We've got our budget. What do we have to do then next? We have to raise levies. And that's set out in Section 81. And it tells us that the Owners Corporation must determine the amounts to be levied as a contribution to both the admin fund and the Capital Works Fund and raise the amounts estimated. So we've done our estimating back in Section 79. Section 80 is our Capital Works Fund planning that should assist us with our estimating. And then Section 81 is what tells us that we have to raise levies. And we do that at the same meeting at which we've determined our estimate. So this is why you'll see motions at AGM agendas that will say that the budget be approved. So that's your Section 79 activity, your budget, your estimates be approved, and then that the levies be raised in accordance with the approved budget. It's a two-step process. What you'll find on your agenda is that there is an assumption that the budget will be approved, because you'll already find on your agenda that the numbers, the amounts to be raised to each fund are printed there on your agenda. And that's an assumption that the budget will be approved as presented. And then the amounts will be raised in levies to each fund. That's your Section 81 action. Sometimes the budget is not approved, or it's proposed that the budget be increased or decreased, or there's a couple of different options for the budget. And then ultimately the levies that you are then approving are going to be in a different or a revised amount. So can be a technical process. I find it quite fascinating to have been involved in meetings where this process is happening and everybody accepts that this needs to happen. We need to raise levies, but is not always aware of why we're doing it in the way we're doing it. And with the budgeting, approving the budget, and then moving to raise levies to our two different funds, it's because that's what the legislation says. The legislation tells us that this is how it has to be done. Now, Arti has told us that the Capital Works Fund at Arti's building has run out of money, and they are now borrowing from the administrative fund to be able to meet Capital Works Fund expenses. The idea is, in a perfect world, that shouldn't happen. That if your estimating is done properly, that if you have an accurate Capital Works Fund plan, then you should always be raising enough money at each annual general meeting to your Capital Works Fund to meet Capital Works expenses. Yes, there may be surprises. The best practice when there are surprises, instead of borrowing from one fund to pay another and to pay a surprise expense, some may say, I say, best practice is to convene a meeting and raise a special levy to be able to pay that unexpected, unanticipated expenditure. I think that's actually in our legislation. Is it in there in Section 81? Oh, yeah, it is too. Section 81, subsection 4. If the Owners Corporation is subsequently faced with other expenses it cannot at once meet from either fund, It must levy on each owner a contribution to the admin fund or capital works fund determined at a general meeting in order to meet the expense. That's your special levy. That's your special levy, and that's the section that says we can raise special levies. But interestingly, and I didn't pick this up until just reading it then, if it can't meet expenses from either fund, if it can't meet, so at the moment, Arti, your building can meet the expense from the admin fund, so they're meeting it from the admin fund. They should be engaging in that replenishing exercise after 3 months. But otherwise, there is provision there for a special levy to be raised, and that's in section 81, subsection 4. And it is in order to meet the expense that can't otherwise be met. And this is why your strata manager might be telling you, when we're raising a special levy, we have to be very clear on the agenda what the special levy is for. We can't just say we want to raise 100 grand. We can't just say we want to raise $1 million. Full stop. End of story. We need to be saying that it is to meet an expense that cannot at once be met from either fund. This is what the expense is, put it in the motion, and therefore we're raising a special levy to meet that expense. All right, I am going to stop sharing that one. I will just ask Mina and Rochelle if there is any further sections to post. I think section 81 we've just posted, which is excellent. Thank you very much. And head over to these comments. You guys are awake today. You are here and commenting, which is awesome. I've seen some comments here. I can see Wendy giving us a Victorian example. In Victoria, we've been using a 10-year plan for years. The committee meets before the AGM to review and propose next year's and onward works. Unplanned expenses from damages during driveway reconstruction and intercom replacement created $20,000 extra to be found this year. Open and transparent, no problem getting a levy on top of contributions from 14 owners. Love it. Really great example there, Wendy, of a nicely functioning building. Okay. Helena's asking, can you please let me know where to look for matters relating to 2-unit strata plans? Yep, absolutely, Helena. We got a podcast. We got a podcast on that, specific to 2-lot schemes and how the legislation treats them differently, where the exemptions are in the legislation, and what you need to show and how you need to be positioned if you want to get out of having to have a capital works fund and having to do capital works fund planning. Arti's saying, thank you. I'm pleased that that was helpful, Arti. Patrina's saying, it is so hard for volunteers on the committee to be aware of every nuance in the legislation. Might as well have a strata lawyer on every committee. That's a dangerous call. Let me tell you that, Patrina. That's a dangerous call. I just see the strata managers going, no, we don't want a strata lawyer on every committee. That could be paralyzing, trust me. But it is tough. It's tough to be across all of these. Okay, just briefly scanning my eyes over those comments there. I think we're good for now. I will come back around and post those additional resources that I've talked about specific to 2-lot schemes and pick up anything that I may have missed there. Hello to everybody who's come on in and said hello that I haven't acknowledged yet. It's been great to have you here with me live. As I said, we received quite a few questions here today. Every single one of those questions are perfect for our members Q&A forum. A couple of you who sent through questions both on the page and in my inbox, you are members, and I do encourage you to go right on ahead and post your question to our Q&A forum. I was in there earlier today, and I'll be in there very likely over the weekend over my cup of tea, as I do often on a Saturday morning. Post your question there if you're a member, and you will absolutely get it answered by me. If you are not a member and you would still like your question answered, then get on over into that Q&A forum. It's super easy. You can get instant access over at stratamembership.com. That's not the only thing that we offer inside our membership. If you have listened to this week's podcast, you will hear about another really valuable and valued benefit of membership, which is your one-on-one member call with me. So if those are two things that you're excited to check out, then head over to stratamembership.com. I'd love to have you with us, and with many of us, I know a number of you here today are members, with all of us on the inside. That is it for today. Thank you for an excellent question, Arti. This one is going in the bank, the Strata Knowledge Library. Thank you for contributing to that. Have a lovely weekend in Strata, everybody, and I will catch you next time. Bye bye.